Epik Mellon podcast, conversations with the real humans behind broadband networks, cybersecurity, and the future of communications. Brought to you by QA Cafe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of the Epik Mellon podcast. So many at this point that I don't bother to count anymore. But it's been fun. I am your host, Jason Walls from QA Cafe, and today I have with me Marcel Sponer from Vodafone. And I met Marcel basically through my work at the Broadband Forum, but it's like things have sort of rolled to a point where we keep interacting a lot. So I wanted to get you on here so we can talk about all kinds of the usual stuff we talk about, but I'm always interested in hearing how people got in the industry. And um, the thing I like about Vodafone in general is that, they have a bunch of you guys who are pioneering a lot of stuff and allowing you to do so. And a lot of companies don't do that. So I really like it. That's why I wanted to have you on. So yeah. As always, the views expressed by myself or my guest do not reflect those of QA Cafe or its ownership, and same goes for Vodafone. Obviously, the opinions of everything we say are ours and ours alone. And this podcast is brought to you by the great products we make at QA Cafe, including CD Router, the industry standard test platform for broadband gateways, Wi-Fi devices, and other customer premises equipment, with thousands of pre-built test cases and fully automated scripting that works with your CI/CD system, and it makes everything easier so that you can build better products overall for your customers. Also, CloudTrack, which is the T-shirt I'm wearing right now. CloudTrack Enterprise, which is our enterprise-grade packet capture analysis solution for companies that are looking to take a little bit more control over however everybody does their deep work with packet analysis when solving problems, and being able to work together while they do it. And then also Packet Viewer, which is the power behind CloudTrack that lets you put an OEM packet analysis solution into your cloud managed networking or cybersecurity solution with simple licensing and a whole bunch of other bells and whistles that are really easy to implement. All right. So, how are you? How are you doing?
Well, I have to admit, this is my podcast debut, so I'm not sure what to expect, but thank you very much for having me.
Yeah, no, I mean, I never know what to expect either. It's completely. I try to explain to people. It's like the Captain America and Hulk meme there, where he's like, what's your secret? He's like, my secret is I'm angry all the time. I'm like, my secret is I'm just winging it all the time. So
Yeah.
I know it
So,
looks like this is well planned, but it's not.
so the only ask is please don't be too harsh on me, yeah?
Oh no, no, no! I will never. This is definitely a non-confrontational show.
Good.
But I wanted to talk to you because, so just through the work that we've ended up doing together, particularly around the stuff that you've shown about the things that you're doing at Vodafone with device management, USP, and all that stuff, which I've explained on this show a couple times, so people have a general idea about what that is. But something really struck me when you were giving that presentation. It was kind of like this is how I got here. And it resonated with me because that's kind of the subject of this show, is how a lot of us get into the positions that we're in, and especially in computer networking in general, like totally by accident, right?
Yeah, that definitely applies to me, yeah.
Yeah. So what your official title at Vodafone is what?
Well, my official title is a solution architect. So I'm part of a team in Vodafone that builds products and services. Yeah? So even though I'm part of a network operator, I have a very strong product and services focus. Yeah. Why it's also a bit, maybe there's a bit like a fun story how I ended up in the CPE world, which is really like to say it happened by accident. Yeah. Because the vast majority of my time that I spent in Vodafone is actually working on services. Yeah? So on a particular service called SecureNet, which I'm sure we will talk about a bit more about it later. But the way how I ended up in Vodafone is that after university, I basically started to work for a consulting company. Though I wanted to explore the world, I wanted to learn fast and quickly. So I decided to go the consulting route. And
What
that,
did you do? What did you do in school? Was it computer science or was it?
yes. So, I mean, the question is how far you want me to go back in time. So if I go very, very far back, yeah, it was already since primary school when it was clear to me that my talent is more on the math side. Yeah, so I was
Mhm.
never really interested in languages and stuff like this. Yeah, which I mean, you probably hear due to my not so brilliant English. Yeah, I always was more interested in solving equations and learning about physics and things like that in school. Yeah, so the the path was more or less already clear very, very early. So I ended up after school doing what in Germany is called a professional training. Yeah, so I
Mhm.
decided after school I needed to do something practical. And in Germany, where I'm based, you can either directly go to university and study things more from a theoretical perspective. The alternative route that you can go is you can do what's called a professional training. Yeah? It's basically something that lasts for 2.5 up to 3 years. And it's a combination of doing practical work for the business. Yeah? In my case, it was DT Deutsche Telekom and some theoretical background. So it's 50-50. Yeah? So 50% of the time you go to a school where you get taught about a specific subject. Yeah? For me, it was systems integration. And so
Right.
I got in contact very, very early after after leaving secondary school with computer networks and configuring routers and things like
You
that.
did. Cool.
Yeah. I remember the time when I sat in front of a Cisco router doing iOS programming and things like that. But this is very, very long time ago. I even don't remember how it was. It's a science in itself. Yeah, that's what I recall. But yeah, like I said, it was definitely an interesting experience for me because it was more or less the first step into the industry. And after this 3-year professional training I did at DT, I then decided to go back to university, yeah, to get a bit of more theoretical background around the stuff that I learned practically at the company. Yeah, and I studied computer science. Yeah, so I did the bachelor and the master. And after this 5 years, I then decided, like I just said, yeah, so first professional career was for a mid-sized consulting company in Germany. Did a couple of projects which were not directly close to where I live. Yeah, so this traditional consulting life, leaving home
Yeah. All the
Sunday
time. Right.
evening, returning back Friday late
Yeah.
afternoon. So after, I don't know how long I did this, couple of years, I got tired of it. Yeah. But this actually brought me. So the last project I did for this consulting company was for Vodafone. Yeah. So, and that was I think it was in 2013 or 2014. I don't exactly recall. So a bit more than 10 years ago.
Mhm.
And I was then working as a consultant for Vodafone and then did a bit like the traditional move, yeah, which is then I got the offer to be insourced. So I then decided to become permanent employee. And
And
yeah,
then
since
you were not working on the CPE side then, right?
no, not at all.
Right.
I mean, really the first 8 years or so, I spent my time in a department that actually carried the name Consumer Products and Services. Yeah. Like I said at the beginning, when you think about Vodafone, what you're doing, yeah, first thing that comes to your mind is mobile networks, fixed
Right. I
broadband,
bet the very
CPEs,
first
things
person.
like
Yeah.
this. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that was a subject which was definitely initially not in my focus at all. Yeah. So
Right.
I was more doing app development, integrating APIs into products and building cool consumer-facing services. Yeah. And the consumer-facing service that I'm working on since the beginning, and I still do this 50% of my time, is a service called SecureNet. I'm sure you heard about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
It actually is, for those who don't know, it's a cybersecurity, so digital security and parental control service that we are providing in Vodafone since more than 10 years now. So we were quite
Cool. Oh,
early in
wow.
that phase.
Really?
Yes.
Interesting. So I don't want to. Well, we will come back to this several times, but like the story that I think that we've been telling, that you and I have been telling at least, that we've talked about a couple times on the show, when we do focus on talking about broadband networks, is sort of this evolution of the operator from, and not everybody thinks that this evolution is happening, right? Even though it clearly is, right? The old argument that operators don't want to be this dumb bit pipe, right?
Yes. Yes.
Are starting to provide very obvious services that take advantage of the things they already have in place, right? And security, not for nothing, like what was it? It was like the most important thing to everybody on the last survey we did, right? It was the most important thing to consumers, and it was the most important thing to the operators, right? So yeah,
Everyone
it's
thinks that it's boring, yeah, but it's just
well,
something that you need, right?
no, right, at least because you have the parental controls thing, which is there's basically three different types of security that we're talking about, right? There's um, smart home level, like actual physical security, which I'm sure we'll talk about it in a minute, right?
Yes,
Then
yes, we
there's
can.
like the security features that you're aware of as a user, right? So like parental controls, because you want to make sure your kids aren't going to sites they're not supposed to be going to, or that they
Hmm.
can turn stuff on and off and limit screen time and all that stuff, right? And then network security on top of that, which is running behind the scenes and taking care of all the other stuff that you don't realize is probably happening, right?
Exactly, exactly.
And so, long story short, and obviously you can elaborate on this, but the operators are in a perfect position to be the ones that offer that service.
Yeah, we are trying. Yes, yes. And like I said, we in Vodafone we are trying, and we're actually doing this for quite some time. Yeah, and it's it's quite a, I would say it's quite a success story. Yeah, this story around SecureNet.
Yeah.
Yeah, just the fact that we are doing this now for more than 10 years, that we
Yeah.
started very, very small. Yeah, and also here it was more something that happened by accident. Yeah, if you,
Oh, really?
yeah, because initially the intent was to install these network filters in our core network for mostly enterprise customers, yeah, for
Oh,
providing
yeah. Right?
enterprise customer security, yeah. So to
Yeah.
give them the ability to do content filtering, yeah. So not allowing employees to go to specific websites, yeah, and to
Right.
protect them from malicious stuff in the internet. Yeah?
Right.
So there was a big project at the time when I joined. It was called the Clean Pipe. And it was a big initiative driven by mostly Vodafone Enterprise. And they installed these huge network filters doing what is called deep packet inspection
Yeah.
in the mobile core. Yeah. And we then, that, like I said, this was really more by accident. We then formed a team that leveraged the capabilities that were installed mostly for enterprise. The enterprise product never really took off. Don't ask me why. Yeah.
Interesting.
But the team that I then joined managed to somehow quite successfully build a consumer product around this. And we were one of the first operators in Europe to have such a consumer service that we were able to provide. And
Cool.
then, like I said, when I joined, the team was very small, maybe two handful
Just
of
you.
people.
No.
No, more, I mean, someone who did the technical integration, someone who was more focused on the network side, a project manager, a program manager, and 2, 3 additional people who were defining the product more from the requirements perspective. And that was really it. Yeah? And then I
Mhm.
remember the first rollout sessions where I spent more or less weeks in a lab in Portugal in Vodafone Lisbon. So
Cool.
trying to somehow make it work. And then, like I said, we somehow managed to roll this out. Then the first market was Vodafone Portugal. Then we moved on, Vodafone Spain, UK, Germany, and we don't ask me why, but we somehow managed really to scale this quite massively. Which means that meanwhile we are serving many, many millions of customers across Europe,
Right.
making quite good revenue.
Oh, so that was
Getting
going to be my
very,
question.
very, very positive customer feedback for it.
Cool.
It was quite the journey for us. Yeah.
Marketed as like an add-on, or is it you using it as like a straight differentiator to be like, we have this? Yes, our prices might be a little higher, but we have this, or is it like a specific?
It changed over time.
Yeah.
It definitely changed over time. Sorry. And this is also something that in the end, each market, we call them the OpCos, the operating companies, or the different local companies who are running the networks in the different countries where Vodafone is present. They are in the end deciding what's the go-to-market plan for
Okay,
a
cool.
service like this. Yeah? So some markets are bundling this. They are just saying, hey, here's your mobile service or your fixed broadband service, and you just get this for free, just as a goodie. Some see this more as an optional add-on service that you need to have an additional subscription for that costs you, I don't know, something between 1, 2, 3 euros a month. Yeah.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. But like I said, it's something that we are doing for quite some time, quite successfully. It's positive for Vodafone because we are just created an additional source for revenue. It's positive for the customer because I think we have something that is just very, very difficult for others to copy. Yeah, which is, for example, when you are a converged Vodafone customer, you set up your settings once in a single place. And then it doesn't really matter if you are connected to your CPE at home or you're leaving home and you're switching to the mobile network. It's the exact same configuration, because this sits in the
That's
corner.
awesome.
Yeah. So.
That's awesome. And I was ranting about that lately because it's like, I won't go off too far on this tangent, but the different worlds of like the mobile world and the fixed broadband worlds were very different people for a very long time, right?
Yes.
And they all have their own sort of silos about how everything works. But the consumer doesn't give a crap about any of it.
Exactly.
And so providing them with that complete experience is all anyone ever wanted.
And I can tell you, one of the biggest challenges that we had, is when we started, Vodafone had really more the focus on mobile networks. Yeah. So the initial version of the SecureNet product focused on mobile customers, mobile only. Yeah. There was no fixed broadband at scope at all. Yeah. This then changed over time, and the company changed its strategy and tried to become a convergent operator. So the biggest challenge for us was to build a product that looks from a customer perspective as a truly convergent product. So it shouldn't matter if you use the fixed network or the mobile network. But from a technical perspective, these are still two very distinct things, very much isolated from each other. So building a product based on these two different technology stacks was quite a challenge for us. It took us quite some time to achieve it.
Well, and so now that that's done, though, spoiler alert for the things that we have actually been working on together for additional services beyond that in the future, and the entire world of things that can possibly be offered under this model, is now that you've already proven that it can be done, right, and have this conversion experience, it's like, oh well, now the possibilities are endless.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I mean, and I don't know how much you can talk about the other things that might be in the works when it comes to stuff like that, but like what are some of the low-hanging fruit you think that consumers would be ready for additional, services that are provided by the operator?
I mean, first of all, Jason, maybe it's interesting for the listeners to understand where the drive towards the CPE now comes from.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. No,
Because
right. Because
if you look
SecureNet wasn't originally, it wasn't, because I assume that there's things that have changed about SecureNet too, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I just
Yeah.
wanted to quickly explain that. Like I
Yeah.
said,
Yeah.
when
No,
we
it's,
initially
yeah.
started, it was meant to be, and it actually, in some markets works like this as a core network service. Yeah. So you put some very, very big boxes in the core network, be it the mobile core or the fixed core. Yeah. And you have these huge filter boxes that are sitting centrally doing all the filtering. Yeah. This is obviously more and more challenging with trends that you can see in the internet. I mean, like I said, we're doing this for more than 10 years. And when we started, everything in the internet was clear text. Yeah. You could basically see everything. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which allowed us definitely initially to provide a much richer user experience. Yeah.
Right.
I still remember sophisticated features like in the parental control space. Yeah, we could see when the child tried to download an application, you could see which application the child tried to download, and you could send this information to the parent telling, hey, your child is trying to download this application. Do you want to allow this? Things like this. Yeah.
Right.
It's quite powerful, but it also means you need to be able to look quite deep into the content. And that dramatically changed over the last years with the rise of HTTPS and everything is becoming encrypted. We then did a move from DPI, the packet inspection, more towards DNS. So providing the service based on DNS. Yeah, so I mean, you're still losing this granularity, being able to look into the full URL, but you can still do filtering on DNS and hostname basis. But also here, there is a trend which is called encrypted DNS, or I mean, this whole privacy story continues, yeah, and it just makes the service for like SecureNet is just harder to provide to customers in a user-friendly way. Yeah, I mean, we are still aiming and we are still selling this as a product that protects you against whatever malicious stuff in the internet. But it becomes more and more challenging for us as an operator to see what's actually passing through our pipe. Yeah.
Right. Which is always kind of a weird dichotomy too, because I was talking about how there's the 1% of internet users who are super nerds and who are very privacy conscious from the perspective of any other company ever seeing anything they're doing. Right.
Yes.
But it's actually not a lot of people. And so the vast majority of people would rather you be keeping them safe from stuff, right?
Yes, it's
But the
really
technology evolves anyway.
It's really this balance that you need to find. Yeah? On the one hand, you have privacy and you don't want to spy on your customers. This is definitely not our intent. Yeah. But at the same time, you also want to see some meta information about
something
the
useful,
traffic.
something useful.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that we can do something more than just passing bytes from A to B, right?
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So how did that change into the CPE doing stuff?
Yeah. Simply because the closer you move such a filtering engine to the customer, the more information you still have about the traffic. Yeah. I'm just giving this quite maybe a trivial example, but when you are providing parental controls, one of the key things that you need to be able to tell to customers is which devices you're using in your home. Yeah? So which devices are connected, which user is using which device, so that you can then on individual device level configure the policies. Yeah, because different users have different ages, different policies should be applied to those. Yeah? So this is a key feature. And to be able to do this initial configuration, you need to have a certain understanding about devices in your home.
Right.
And now try to do this when you are doing this as a pure DNS-based service. What does a DNS server see? A DNS server sees IP addresses. Doesn't tell you much about the device, right?
Right.
So there is a certain extension that we're using. It's called eDNS, which adds the device dimension into DNS, so we can actually see things like the MAC address of the device, but also the MAC address doesn't tell you much about the device. Yeah? So there are some services which are quite sophisticated that allows to tell which device it is just based on the MAC address. Yeah, but having an agent that runs on the CPE, yeah, so having an element inside the local network just gives you more visibility, yeah, not only on the traffic that goes out into the internet, but also all the traffic that you can see in-house. And you're then just, when you have that additional insight, you're just able to be able to provide a better user experience. Yeah,
Right.
because
It
you have
really
more
is like
information.
just the perfect location of so many things that can be known. It's providing a very powerful, very specific function that up until now we haven't really had the ability to take advantage of it like we do now, right? And so part of
Yes.
this story, for the people who are listening, part of this story is that um, when we say CPE, by the way, we say customer premises equipment. We're talking about your home router, right? Because I won't go into the retail world of routers, but effectively that is part of the service package that your operator is giving you, right? So I always,
Yes.
as a quick aside, I always tell people, right, like they're like, because in the US, you can buy your own router with a lot of the services, and people are like, I can't believe Xfinity's making me pay $5 a month for a router. And I'm like, that's that's all. like do you know what you don't buy your own. They can upgrade it, they can do all kinds of crazy stuff, and if you buy your own stuff, then none of all of that goes away. So please keep the router that they give you. But
Yeah,
anyway,
that's the same here
uh
in Europe. Yeah.
yeah, right. And I think in some countries there's laws that say that you have to allow them to buy their own, right? I'm not sure
Yes.
if
Here
that's
in Germany, where I'm based, this is law. Yeah.
Um, anyway, but the consequence of basic technological advancement is that the home router has become cheaper and more powerful,
Yes,
right?
yes, yes, and it is attractive from a service perspective. And now I can again add this service background that I have is that working in a service domain, we are talking about somehow conquering the router and bringing components closer to the customer for the last, I don't know how many years. It was very, very challenging. Yeah.
Yeah,
When we first recognized, well, providing a service like SecureNet in the core networks becoming more and more difficult. So we need to bring stuff closer to the customer. It, it just was 3-4 years ago, very, very difficult for us to do this. Yeah. You had
yeah,
these monolithic firmwares with lead times of, I don't know, a year, 1.5 years, extensive testing. And
right. And you would have to work with like some very specific vendors just to get that specific service onto the CP, right?
yes, yes. So in the context of SecureNet, we are talking about moving this into the CPE, putting an agent on the CPE for, I don't know how many years. Yeah. And that's now again the funny story around myself. Yeah. That because we've recognized that we somehow need a change, that we somehow need to make it easier for a service like SecureNet to run on the CPE, to run on the router, that we needed to make some additional investment in a sense that we needed a platform that allows us to more dynamically and more flexible in a bit of a more agile fashion to provide these services via the
Right,
CPE. Yeah. So that
right.
was how I ended up in working with
Oh,
USP and
interesting. So it had that's actually really funny. It's like the reason that you are working with the CPs now is because that's the logical conclusion of where the service had to go, not necessarily the other
yeah,
way around.
that's a bit
That's funny.
like my personal story, yeah, how I ended up in the CPE world.
That's funny. That's funny. So it's entirely a consequence of the reality of how the technology has to work and how it can
Yeah.
work better. That's moved
Yes.
you there rather than rather than being, a gateway expert to begin with, right? Or
Yeah.
people working for vendors and stuff like that. That's really, really funny. Yeah. So now we're in a situation where the CPU is more powerful and it is operating more like a modern computer. And uh, the way that modern computers operate and the way software operates now. Um, I mean,
And we
I'm
have
like,
this way more flexible protocol that allows us to communicate and do the remote device management. USP is the
right.
buzzword here. We
Yep.
have trends like containerization, isolating service agents from the firmware, and or service lifecycle management on the CPE, and all of this cool stuff which happens in RDK and in Purple. So that's where, for me personally, all of this stuff comes together. And I also find it a bit funny when I then go to events, like the USP Summit, where I think we met for the first time, or the Network
Mhm.
X event, where we also saw each other, that it's now obviously it's the entire CPE world that gathers there. But
Yeah.
also for me, when I look at my background, I see a lot of people who I already knew from my service times. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Huh.
So
Huh.
partners that we are working with in the security space. Yeah.
Right. Right. Right.
They,
Right.
they were
Oh yeah.
all there. Yes. And
Yeah.
they are all having their interests, and they are all trying to contribute to initiatives within Purple or in RDK. And that's just very, very interesting for me to
No,
see.
no, it's absolutely true. Like the only reason that I've gotten to know the F Secure guys is because of this, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
For the same
Yes.
reasons.
And
uh,
these were all the folks that I'm interacting with for many, many years now. So I have Secure, Bitdefender, Alert,
yep.
Cujo, all these guys.
Yeah. Yeah. Right. And to that point, like I was saying before, it's like there's basically there were some low hanging fruit when it came to these services because they were already huge pain points, right? So Wi-Fi management, everybody knows that was the problem, right? That is now being solved by containerized applications as well,
Yeah.
right? And then security was the other biggest one, right? The one that was around for the longest. And so those two problems are now being solved much more efficiently and more powerfully than they were before. And the process of building the CPE in a way such that you could do those things more effectively have now opened the door to all kinds of other stuff, right?
Yeah. For me personally, the loop closed. I think it was mid of last year when we were able to celebrate the launch of the SecureNet service in Vodafone UK, which is called SecureNet Home, which is the first time that we were able to launch SecureNet powered by a service that runs on the CPE. Yeah. That
Cool.
really was for me the closing of the loop, where the two different streams, the two different focuses that I have came together and really came to
Cool.
life. So
Cool. And they call it SecureNet Home.
SecureNet Home, yes.
Neat. Neat. So I mean, what's next then?
Yeah, well, next is now that we as Vodafone, we've invested quite a lot into building this thing that we call the service delivery platform, which is in the end a USP-based platform that allows to remotely manage CPEs. Not so much from a pure device management perspective, but really the focus is on services. Yeah,
Right.
that's why I think you remember whenever I'm talking about this, I'm saying that we are running this in this dual stack coexistence mode. Yeah, that there is still an ACS, and in most of the countries, the ACS in Vodafone are still TR69 based. And we are then just able, with our platform, to sit on top of this and just to do some additional stuff. And this additional stuff that we are doing is services, gathering data, telemetry, and things like that. And um, because you asked what's coming next. I mean, for us, it's obviously now that we've invested in this platform, we want to use it more, for more
Right. Right.
services.
Mhm.
We want to scale it. We want to bring it to other countries. So right now we are live in Bonopco, and there are projects running that are trying to scale this and bring this to other countries, onboarding additional devices, making it compatible with our own RDK-based
Right.
CPE,
Yeah.
and then launching additional services. There are some interesting ones also in the security space that we are
Oh,
looking into,
really?
but more the physical security side.
Oh,
So
right,
not
right, right, right. Yep. Yep. Yep.
that we
No,
are
exactly. Right.
doing some trials for other services that we are looking into that are more in the smart home area.
Right. And
Even
what's
though I
so
have,
cool about this is that it's like, and I always talk about this from a consumer perspective myself, right? Like, what product do I want, right? And you and I have talked about this before about how it's nice that the home gateway is becoming this thing, right? And because it's becoming that thing, like the consumer is now more aware of it I would say as an appliance, right?
yeah,
Rather than this thing that sits over there. And yeah, I know I don't know, fiber comes out of the wall and it goes to this other thing. And then that's where my Wi-Fi comes from. And I never look at it and I never think about it, right? To something that is much more fundamental to their everyday lives, right? More like a refrigerator, right? Because it is, right? Because every single consumer technology now is a connected consumer technology. And the home gateway is the thing that sees all that happening and is responsible for making it all work. So it is
yes,
the best place to put the applications that work on that stuff.
yeah, and it's a new opportunity for service operators like Vodafone to
Mhm.
provide additional value, just because we already have this box in customers' homes, so it would be stupid not to use it.
No, exactly. And what I've always found sort of fascinating and rewarding, because I always joke about how when I started my career, I never thought that I would be sympathetic to operators, right? Because it's like, those guys, those ISPs always screwing us over. No, but it's a combination of two things. One, they are the people who were already getting blamed for everything when something goes wrong, right? Because I always did say how you don't call Netflix when Netflix isn't working, right?
Exactly, yeah, exactly.
Right. So now, scale that up to every single consumer electronics product in existence because they're all connected. Um, and it makes a perfect opportunity for the operator to become the trusted technology provider. But then people are like, wait, that's odd because I thought people didn't trust operators. But it turns out it's totally wrong. We were all wrong. People do trust their operator to take care of those things. They've wanted them to do that for a long time.
Yeah. That is also what market surveys tell us. Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing, right? I would not have expected that.
True. I mean, I may be one of these 1% of customers who are skeptical as
No, we
well.
are. It's very important, and this comes up so often, like so often. It comes up in standards, Marcel. Like when we're sitting there making stuff for TR181 and USP, and people are like, "Well, I don't think people are going to want to." I'm like, "Hold up, you are not the use case. None of us here in this room
Yeah.
are the use case. We are the 1% of weird nerds that want to do networking
Exactly.
by ourselves. We're not normal."
Yeah, that's true.
Man.
And
But
that's
so,
something to be proud of. I mean, isn't it?
oh, right, it is. It is,
I'm a
right?
proud nerd. Yeah, I can tell.
That's the slogan that at the end of the show that you'll hear is exactly that, right? Um, but long story short, it gives me hope, and I find it very rewarding that people do feel that way because all the stuff that we are working on and the stuff that we do believe in turns out to be panning out exactly the way that we would hope it would, you know?
Yeah, that is actually for me one of the most rewarding things when I look at where I started being a consultant working on projects, and then moving from one project to another. It's somehow satisfying, but what I was really looking for, and that's the reason why I'm doing this for so long time, is that when you see things evolving over time, adjusting, and you also see that you're getting positive feedback and you see things really working out, yeah, then this for me personally is quite rewarding to see, you know, and
No, it is super rewarding, right? And it's like it really does sort of it's like almost a fundamental shift. And I really like talking about this because the human aspect of what we do is the most important thing to me. And I think people, often forget that there are real people like you behind what's going on, and you need to feel validated too that what you're working on is a successful thing. And it is really the best feeling. It's the best feeling. It really
yeah,
is. When you see something that you've been working on come to fruition in a way that is super successful and people love it, like there's
something
nothing
that
better than that.
many millions of customers are using across many different countries. I mean, that's something that just feels good, yeah, I have to say.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. It makes it all worth it. uh, yeah. So it's like I said, I really have sort of this hope that along those lines, I always find that I end up becoming very passionate about things that aren't necessarily directly related to what I'm doing at the moment, right? But I end up caring about it very much. So like obviously QA Cafe, we don't make gateways, right? We test them. We don't make them. But I am very passionate about this idea that the home router is going to turn into this thing that people are much more aware of and take ownership of, and everybody sort of comes together around this hub that really is a window into everything that's happening. Um, and I like that. I like
And
that.
just because it is playing such a crucial role from a customer perspective, I mean, this testing bit is super, super important just to make sure that the thing that we're giving to customers is actually working. Yeah. I mean,
No, it is. It really is. And just like getting it to the point where things are solid enough that you've ironed out details that you never would have imagined. That's one of the things that at QA Cafe anyway, we end up priding ourselves on, right? Is like um we don't just as a quick tangent, like we talk about stability testing or just revealing those things that people don't discover until things are in the field and operating for a very long time. That's the stuff that we find rewarding to discover because it's like, yes, we can all know that the protocols are working, blah blah blah, but finding something that would severely impact millions of people that you wouldn't have known about until it started randomly happening in the field is one of the things that I like best. Making sure that we find those things.
but do you see, if I'm allowed to ask you a question, Jason, do you
Sure.
see a change in the way how CPEs and these gateways are tested now that we are in the world
Oh yeah.
where it's not this monolithical block
Hmm.
that you're looking at, but it's much more modularized and
Yeah. Oh,
uh,
definitely. And it's kind of been this weird change over the last 10 years. A couple of things have happened. One is that you now see things more. You see the software development model, right? Agile stuff, CI/CD, all of the things that software developers deal with, right? More often to a cultural level, right? The way that you build things is using this model. That has, more than 10 years ago, that was not a thing that people did when they were building CP. It's not a thing that we ever experienced, right? Is
yeah,
we were never talking about integrating CD router with Git, you know, ever, or with Jenkins or Bamboo or any of those systems like 10 to 15 years ago. That was never a conversation that was happening, right?
I fully
Even those
agree.
things,
10 years
right?
ago, what we did in Vodafone was traditional waterfall. Yeah? So project team was established, project was worked on, delivered, thrown over the fence, the project team vanished. I know
Right,
you,
right.
what does this service actually do? Yeah? But luckily, we quite early recognized that it just is a model that just doesn't work if you want to give certain value, uh, some cool features to customers, then you just cannot work in that model, yeah, which
No,
made
no.
us
Well,
one
and
of
it would
the
take, by the time it's
first.
done, it's not relevant anymore.
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. You
Uh,
simply always need to keep the ball moving. You need to adjust and adapt to changes. You need to be creative, come up with new cool features to extend the product and to give customers something new, that
Right.
they simply see an evolution of what they are paying for.
Exactly. Right. And that's awesome because it also makes it super visible. It makes it more engaging. They feel like stuff is going on. They feel like the operator's doing stuff for them. Right. The
Yes.
other big change that we've seen over the last 10 years is, ironically, even the reason that you and I are talking right now, is the operator taking more control over the development of the CB, right? Not from a literal, maybe sometimes literally, sometimes like this is our development team, right? We do source from the vendors, but we're doing the file integration and all this stuff.
Yeah.
Um, uh, sometimes to that degree, maybe not entirely to that degree, but it's definitely more so in the past that the operator's taken sort of more control and more visible control of this process, right? Like this is
Yeah.
our product, right?
Yeah. That is something that I see as well inside
Yeah,
Vodafone. That we are trying to take more control. That we are. I mean, it's in the end also a bit of a thing like how do you attract talents to join your company? Yeah, it's not
yeah,
like we traditionally did. Yeah, you go to a vendor, you buy the product, and you put your logo on it and you sell it. No, I mean this is just not attractive for a talented software developer to join a company like Vodafone. Yeah? So you actually want to work on something that you can later on be proud of and can say, this is my
yeah,
work, right?
right. And I really think that people, maybe not that people forgot that, but I think that that fundamental need for all of us to be able to do that is something that wasn't necessarily valued for a long time. Even though we all really valued it, we just kind of like it was not something that was built into the process. And so it's
Yeah,
good that it is, you know.
yeah, totally agree.
All right. Well, thanks for doing this, Marcel. I appreciate it a lot. Um, and yeah, I wanted to get that story out because I feel like people need to hear it, especially this year, because I feel like I know say every year is the year of the smart CPE, but this year definitely
Yeah. What makes you so certain about it?
it's just you can feel. I've talked about this on the show before, but you can feel when an idea that exists whose time has come. Like there's just this confluence of uh, technology and market readiness and people talking about it and like and it all wraps together and suddenly it happens, right? I talked to this to Ken Pyle, the marketing director of the Broadband Forum. He
Yeah.
was at CES, right? And he was there just exploring everything, all of the crazy technology that was there. And that's basically that's fundamentally what happens is there's this weird convergence of the technology being ready and the price being just where it's supposed to be and people being ready for it, right? And it's just this perfect storm, and that's when stuff happens. So I like to think that it will happen for the hub of the network home.
Fingers crossed, yeah. We'll repeat this at the end of the year.
No, we should see if actually if our predictions come true. Alrighty. Thanks, Marcel. I'm good. This will be up next week, and so you'll see it next week. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you want to hear more stories like this, or you have any questions for people who are on the inside, like Marcel, please do leave stuff in the comments. Like this video, subscribe to this channel, or on your favorite podcast platform. And above all, own the nerdy things that you love and have fun doing them. Thanks, Marcel.